And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of As Good as It Gets. I'm Ricky Hampton with my great friend Derrick Gervin, former New Jersey Nets shooting guard. Hope everybody's doing well. I've been on the DLD, but I'm back. I'm ready to rock and roll, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm glad to see you. The show I told you was secondary. It's all about you getting better, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you're getting better. I'm glad you out there conquering that golf course again. So yeah, I'm very happy for
Hey, the golf course is conquering me. Trust me on that.
that.
Hey, it's been a minute since we were on the air. That I want to go back and talk to you. Uh, let's start with the Olympic and your thoughts on the Olympics just overall. That's when I was on the DL list, and I'm just sitting around the house watching games, and I'm watching events that I would never cheer for. I would never like cycling. These guys, I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
USA. I'm like cheering for break dancing and whatever. It was. I'm glad it was on for a lot of good reasons. I always liked the Olympics, and it gave me something to do. But your thoughts on the games in Paris?
I thought it was fantastic. I watched cycling. I'm like you. I was watching swimming, a
Yeah,
lot of gymnastics, track and field. It was amazing. Of course, we get to the basketball in a minute, but just to see all these people get the opportunity and to see some of these upsets that were happening in the track and field and the other events. I had one bad moment for me is when the young lady had to give up her bronze medal. I didn't like to see that part.
yeah.
I don't want
Jordan
to go too far, but
Childs.
yeah, that kind of ticked me off there. That they would go back and take her bronze medal, talking about something about 4 seconds, and
Yeah.
so you lose your gold medal because you did, a bronze medal because of some 4 silly seconds. I thought that was ridiculous.
Hey, you heard she said she ain't giving it back, man. Like y'all come get
Well,
it then.
I can't be mad at her. I mean, it's a lifetime moment. You see how happy she was, and her and
Yeah.
Simone Biles celebrating. And then you don't do stuff like that, man. You come back at the last minute, and then there was some funny stuff involved for the young lady. I think for Romania, that was given the bronze medal. And
Yeah.
so I kept
Yeah.
up with it a little bit. It sounded like it was some shisty stuff going on, and it wasn't a good sight. But overall, I think the Olympics was fantastic. We saw the emergence of South Sudan in the basketball, the men's basketball. I was proud of that because Royale Ivy, the head coach, used to be down here at University of Texas, played for the Longhorns. So for
Okay.
him to see him and Luau Dang, who I must give all the credit for supporting these guys out of his pocket, and to see them emerge like they did, that was a great sight to see, and I'm proud of those guys. And hey, their future is looking bright.
Yeah, for sure. They have some athletes out there. Let's talk a little bit about the basketball. Let's start with the ladies, though. Ladies first. USA women kept their win streak alive, 60 straight. They edged France in the championship game. They did not play well that game, dude. They turned it over a ton in that game. And France had the home crowd with them. And Gabby Williams almost sent it in the OT. She had her foot on the line, and USA got away with one. But you know what I always think when you got a team that's just winning, winning, winning. At some point you're going to lose. Nobody goes 1,000-0. That was almost one of those things, especially when the kid from France hit about a 35 footer with the clock running down. You remember that?
Yeah, at
From
the
the
end of the
top of the
first
key.
half.
Yeah, at the top
At
of
the
the
end of the
key. Yeah,
first half. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Your thoughts
Woo.
on the ladies and where the ladies' game is, and then we're going to get to the men, and then come back where the ladies are going in the LA in 28, and where the men's game is.
Well, it was kind of sad, to be honest, at first, because you had some people weren't happy because Caitlin Clark wasn't chosen, and so as you know, neither chosen, but neither was Angel Reese. So you had two rookies. Neither one of them were picked. So I thought, other than that, the ladies look well. They struggled a little bit, but the object is to win. And Ricky, if you really think about it, against France, France worked the clock. They played very disciplined basketball. We were one shot from losing, in my mind. If you remember, in the fourth quarter, I believe it was about 3 or 4 minutes left. We were down 5 points. There was a loose ball, kind of like Ray Allen when Chris Bosh got the rebound against the Spurs and kicked it back out. So we were down 5. It looked like we were going to lose the ball off a missed shot. And then on a hustle play, we were able to corral the basketball and kick it out to the 3-point line. And then Kelsey Plum hit a 3-pointer to cut the lead down to 2. At that point, I said, oh, boy, we're going to come through. But if we didn't score that time, I was looking at France getting that gold medal. But it just shows how hard, when you play hard, good things happen. And then, as you know, down the stretch, we were able to seal the deal. We got some big plays. Breanna Stewart, Asia Wilson played well. Everybody stepped up. And even though we won by 1 point, people were complaining that, they should have took Caitlin and all that. The object is to win. And the ladies continued to stay together. I was sad to see Diana Taurasi not get to play in the last game, but hey, I'm sure she was prepared because she watched Jason Tatum go through the same thing. But all the ladies kept playing. They played hard. They kept fighting, and we brought home the gold, man. And I thought that was spectacular. Cheryl Reeves deserves some credit for putting those ladies together and keeping them together.
Yeah. Because one thing about this team, they only come together for the Olympics. Some of the other countries, they play a lot more games together. So, I mean, just the cohesion you need isn't always there because they don't get to spend a lot of time together.
Well, some people were focused on the fact that Brittany Griner and Taurasi didn't play that much. And remember, those were the two that a lot of people shouldn't have been picked over over Caitlin and Angel Reese. So neither one of them played a whole lot of minutes. Brittany didn't play, I'm sure, as much as she wanted to play. We know Diana's 42. So just for her to be able to participate in her 6th Olympics was a great thing, and her 6th gold medal. But both of those ladies continue to cheer for the team. And at the end of the day, we were able to prevail. And so it just goes to show you, sometimes you have to sacrifice. And when you're dealing with the Olympics, someone's always going to have to sacrifice and possibly be left out of the rotation. But part of that is being teammates, getting the camaraderie together. They eat together, they stay together. After the practice, they go home together, back to the Olympic Village or wherever they may have stayed. I know a lot of them moved out of Olympic Village because they weren't too happy about some of the conditions there. So they went and got their own places, rooms or whatever. But they continue to fight, man. And we're gold medal winners again. And I want to commend Diana Taurasi for her 6th gold medal. I don't think we'll ever see that again. I know I won't in my lifetime.
Yeah. 6 gold medal. No. The men played against France in the finals. They had a tougher road to hold than the ladies. They had a tough semifinal against Serbia, and I really enjoyed that championship game against France. And Derrick, that's the first time I've watched Wemby play really closely. I've seen him, of course, but man, I watched him throughout that whole game. I mean, he's a really talented player. His jump shot, his form is as good as a shooting guard with his jump shot, and he's competitive out there too, man. And it was fun to see him play so well. I'm glad USA won, but I was really impressed with him and France and the crowd there, and they almost fought off a huge upset.
Well, if you look at it, they had some good players. Guard Cordonier was good. Of course, we know Gershon Yabusele was big time. That
Just
young man
signed
with the
by
braids.
just signed by the
He just
city.
signed with the Philadelphia. Yes. So
Okay.
you had him. You had Lasorte with the braids. Lasorte that was doing all the dirty work. They don't even get to the finals if it's not for Lasorte. He was huge against Canada, and basically he was the main catalyst for them beating Canada to even qualify to get to the finals. But they had a really good team. You have Nicholas Batum, of course, Evan Fournier. So a lot of people are familiar with those two guys. But they played really well. But Victor, the only thing, Ricky, for me is it looks like he's trying to be a 7'4" Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And me being down in San Antonio, I want to see him get down on the block a little more and start facing up maybe on the block. And if you remember, though, I got to give him some credit because his coach called him out publicly before they got to the semifinals, I believe, about him trying to do it by himself. So for Victor to have the maturity at his age, 19 to 20-year-old, to shake off that criticism, public criticism, and to continue to grind. And he actually played better after that. He played more team ball, but he still was Victor Wembanyama. And defensively, the guy's a beast. I mean, he can cover so much space, so much. The length affects a lot of people. And they played really well, but we were the best team. And to see them, play us so hard, and thank God for who. That guy, Steph Curry, man, I'm telling you. If Steph doesn't show up in the semifinals against Serbia when he had 36 points and he was 9 for 14 from three, and then the last game against France, he had 8 3-pointers for his 24 points. Without his help and Devin Booker and LeBron and all those guys, it would have been hard to bring home the gold. So we got a total team effort, and that includes Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton, who didn't play much, but they continued to cheer the team on. And we brought home the gold.
Hey, we got a special guest joining us tonight. I want to bring him in, a great friend of the show, NBA and an ABA legend who's just honored by his hometown today, the one and only Mac Calvin. Hey, Mac, the city of Long Beach shows you a lot of love today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, guys, good to see you. Good to see you, Derrick, as well as Ricky. And it's been a while, but thank God everyone's doing well. And yeah, I just celebrated my 47th year last week in Long Beach with my basketball camp. And we had 157 kids show up, and about 170 that signed up. But some of the kids had to go back to school. But it's quite an honor. And the city of Long Beach, the Century Club of Long Beach, presented a check to me and honored me for my community service. And it was pretty nice. And that particular group has been around for over 50 years, 60 years, in honoring great athletes like Billie Jean King and Willie McGinnis, Tony Gwynn. You can go on and on and on. A lot of them from Poly High School that went on to USC and the NFL. So yeah, I was quite thrilled to be a part of that.
I didn't know Tony Gwynn was from Long Beach. Did he play basketball? Was he in your camp?
Oh, absolutely.
I know he was a good basketball player too.
Yeah. My mom babysitted Tony Gwynn, and Tony Hill's from there. Played for Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
And
Dallas Cowboys.
Gene Washington, Willie McGinnis, Earl McCullough, whose son, who was an Olympian, was a first-round draft pick, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah,
Ricky.
Yeah.
Good friend. We went to high school together. So yeah, a lot of. Last I heard, it was over 90 former Poly High School players, Long Beach athletes that played in the NFL. And yeah, so, and of course, Billie Jean King right at the top, Wow. But yeah, it's a great city. And, last 2 years we've been conducting our camps at the Boys and Girls Club. And we've kind of outgrown that with 150-something kids. But I'm just, giving back, Ricky. I'm just grateful and honored to be of service. I have about 12, 15 young men and women that work for me, that are coaches. And, we feed the kids, and the summer camp is our biggest one, our largest one, because we're able to give out backpacks with school supplies. It's about $100 package for those kids, and so I'm just grateful, man. What can I say? And then tonight I get a chance to talk to two legends. You know,
You're the
One
legend,
day.
sir. Hey, Mr. Calvin. I appreciate that, but you got it backwards. You and Ricky the legends, and
No.
I'm glad to see. I have to commend you because you and I talked, and when you tell me about these camp, how long this camp has been going on, and you giving back to the community, sir, it's absolutely spectacular. And you know how I feel about you. I had to
yes.
remind you that I had met you when I was about 10 years old in the ABA.
Yeah,
And I told George that's one of the best lessons I ever had listening to you talk. Even though George Gervin is my brother, I talked to Matt Calvin, and that's something that has stuck with me over the last 50 years. So I want to just commend you for being a great human being.
Well, thank you so much. You know, the scripture in the Bible says too much is given, much is required. And so I'm required to give back. But, you know, I've been blessed over the years to have these kids in 11, 12, 13, before they really got outstanding. It means James Harden, he was there, 11, 12 years old. Kawhi Leonard was there. DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Tashawn Prince, Tyson Chandler.
Man.
All those guys were in my camp when they were kids. And then, of course, they start really were way ahead of themselves. So then start playing travel ball with AAU. So I've been blessed, you know. So, you know, behind me, I don't know if you can see the picture of myself and some of the great players of the ABA. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, I see you, Rick Barry.
George is in there, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to show you in a second a picture of
I know that picture. Ricky, you check it out. And I think it's a great picture.
That's Rick Barry, Matt Calvin. Is that Marvin Barnes?
Marvin Barnes,
Zelmo Beatty. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you hold on a second, I'm going to show you a picture of your brother. I'm going to get that off my wall. Hold on a second. Yeah. I got in my other office, man, I've got, you know, all kind of pictures and Cougar jerseys and Miami Floridian jerseys. So one day they may be worth something. If you hold on a second, I'm going to get out of this for a second.
We'll keep talking while you're gone. We're joined by Matt Calvin, who was voted to the ABA's all-time team.
Mm-hmm.
And Derrick, you know what Mac is doing in Long Beach is what you're doing in San Antonio.
I'm even trying to do a little more, Ricky. I wrote a young man from Duke today who used to play for the Blue Devils. He's a 39-year-old guy by the name of Sean Dockery. So I'm waiting to hear back from him. He has a program here in San Antonio. So I'm trying to hook up with him and even do something even better for these young people.
Well, it's important. It's important in today's, you know, to help these young kids. So you know, we're blessed. But I wanted to show you guys a picture of the great George Gervin. I don't know if you can see it or not.
185 pounds.
Hey, don't talk. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
I see it on the left with the ball in the red with the ball in his left hand.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's Ice Doc. Is that A-Train?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Louis Dampier.
Louis Dampier.
You don't know Louis also played here, Ricky, with the Spurs.
Okay,
and George McGinnis.
And George, the late great George McGinnis.
Rest in peace, yes, sir.
Man, so many. I mean, y'all were some dudes back there, man.
Well, we you know, it really propelled professional basketball and really, you know, that's where the game is played today. And we haven't gotten enough credit, but you know, in '76, 2026 will be the 50th year of the merger. Right. And I've got some thoughts and ideas that I'm going to pass by to the commissioner and hope they can honor us. I think at some point the ABA league should be inducted as a contributor to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. You know, if they can acknowledge and put the 1992, 1976, and last year the 1976 women as contributors to the Hall of Fame, I think that would be a major tribute to have the ABA. And then, of course, obviously next year, I feel good about my chances of going into the Naismith Hall of Fame. I think it's about time.
It's more than about it, yeah.
Yeah, it's past time. And I think the NBA should honor the ABA stats.
Oh, I think that's going to happen, Ricky. I think, with the recent acknowledgement of the Negro League going into the MLB,
right?
I think I think that's going to happen. But you got to have enough voices out there, and unfortunately, people have to die before they acknowledge their greatness during that time and during that era. It's interesting. I'm going to go sidebar to listen to a young 23-year-old kid that really have no clue about his past history. And Anthony Edwards talking about Michael Jordan Michael Jordan was the only skilled player during that era. He got to be out of his mind, So that game, it's always been comprised of great teams, but there's a lot of talent in those days, and of course when the merger came about, it really highlighted, the intricacies of the game of moving, passing, cutting, pick and roll. It was all there then, but that's probably for another show, guys.
No, Mr. Calvin, because what you said, you just mentioned why these guys are getting MVP, the European players. Right. And that's why it was so competitive in the Olympics, because of what you're talking about right now, moving without the ball, things that we don't hear discussed enough in the United States. It breaks my heart because we're more focused on dribbling around cones and, through the legs and around the back and all that stuff. Steph does that, but he only does it when it's necessary. Right. But it's just fundamental basketball and moving without the ball. That's not addressed enough here in the United States. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, it's basically a two-man game, pick and roll, drive and kick to the corner to a 32% three-point shooter. And, that's why, when you see that really, next year you're going to see San Antonio really blossom with Chris Paul. The game is will always be predicated around ball movement and five players playing together out on the court and, of course, playing defense. But, when you look at, you talked about this recent Olympic experience in that team, they only had 2 or 3 weeks to prepare and put it together, and they still almost lost. Certainly those teams have played together for years, and they have a system. And when you almost lose to that African continent team, the Sudan, it tells you how far other teams and countries have come. And the NBA has put so much money into Europe League and the African community that it's really flooded. It's really diminished a lot of the American players and certainly the white players, And so it's going to be difficult for American young players to make it into the NBA because of the growth of European basketball and the African League. Going to be very difficult.
Yeah, man. We were just talking about that before we came on the air. And I was just looking at some of Ice's stats. If you add his 6 years in the ABA, okay, his total number, he averaged 22 points a game. That's 10,000 more points you could put on his.
He would have 26,595 if they count his regular season ABA points.
And they will,
as opposed to 20,000 something points.
Yeah, and the same with Moses.
Yes, Dr. J, over 30,000.
Yeah, my 10,000, almost 11,000. Of course, as I've always said, unfortunately, the league didn't see me at my best. I came into the league after having knee surgery, a quadricep tear in the 7th year in the league, and so I was kind of shell of myself and guys like James Silas as well. But
Ricky, can I ask Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Calvin, I'm sorry, can I ask you a quick question? Is that all right, Rick? I want to ask him
before
we move on. Mr. Calvin, could the NBA be a little jealous? And the reason I say that, I look at you yourself, okay? You got Dan Issel, you got Artis Gilmore. I can go on and on. Dr. J, Rick Barry, Charlie Scott. I mean, there's so many of the greats that come from the ABA, and it's like they act like these guys started out in the NBA. And what George always says is, once an ABA player, he's an ABA guy. And do you think the NBA, why don't they want to give these guys like yourself more credit, the credit that you guys rightfully deserve?
Well, and thank you for saying that. I think it's again, it's like we did not exist. We were second class, and you go back to what Red Auerbach said at the beginning. These a bunch of clowns with the red and white basketball. So he said the only player in the league that was any good that can play in this league was Dr. J. And then now you still have Jerry Colangelo around from the old school, who was doing that era, but yet he cherry picked a lot of great players. The first one was Connie Hawkins, and then Charlie Scott. So I think that the old school minds are still around, but I think we're going to need, and I've always said that guys like your brother, players like your brother, Doc, and Artis, and all those guys who are Hall of Famers should speak up and say, we've got 5, 6, 7 players. Myself, Matt Calvin, Willie Wise, Jimmy Jones, James Silas should be, Donnie Freeman should be, Ron Boone should be in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So until that happens, we're going to be second-class citizen or a mediocre ball player in a mediocre league. But I think that first needs to take place. And then we're going to have sports writers to really push for us. I don't think Bob Costas have done enough to really push the former ABA. I'm the only.
And Bob, that's where Bob got his start, was the ABA.
Oh, absolutely, St. Louis Spirits. But I'm the only guard that's not in the ABA who is a 3-time first team, meaning the top 5 player, and then one year I was the second team, which means the top 10 best players in the league, and I'm the only 5-time All-Star guard that has ever started in the All-Star game, of the 7 years of the existence, I'm the only player that ever led his team to the ABA finals his rookie year, where that team was in last place, only won 30 games the year before. So there's some people that's putting a profile together for me to present to the NBA, and I'm talking about people that don't look like me, that are just major fans, that are in high places, that really are pushing for a change. So I think I got a pretty good chance this coming year, certainly by the 50th year of the merger. We'll see. But, there's a lot of other great ball players. I think James Silas should be, highly recognized. Ron Boone for his longevity, and Jimmy Jones as well, So it's just not enough voices out there that's talking ABA.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of these stats. Mackey had 10,620 assists in your.
No, 10,000 points, not assists.
Points.
Oh, that's points.
Yeah,
points. Yeah.
10,000.
Number 8. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he could defend. And he could defend.
Well, that was on certain nights, because sometimes I couldn't even guard my luggage at the airport. But when you look at there's never been a rookie, ABA or NBA, that ever scored 45 points and had 18 assists in a playoff game, which I did against the Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Chaparral.
And Matt, and then you added your college career, what you guys were able to do at USC.
Exactly.
Beat UCLA when people said they were absolutely unbeatable.
Right. They had won 58, 57 straight home games at Pauley Pavilion until we beat them my last game of my senior year and of course Lou Alcindor, who was Kareem, I believe the ball down. We beat them.
Rick,
Yeah.
Rick,
So yeah.
Ricky, if you look at Mr. Calvin's first two, his initial, the MC, the two toughest are so-called smaller men to ever play. I'm talking physicality. One of them name is Mac Calvin, and you look at that CM. The other one's name is Calvin Murphy.
Yeah. Well, thank you and you're right. I mean, that we had to have that mentality, that tough mentality. And I was the first little man that opened the door for the next year Calvin Murphy, or 2 years later Calvin Murphy, and then Nate Archibald. And so those guys had some great years. Of course, my stats, if you look at them, is much better than Calvin Murphy. Tiny never won anything. He was a great guard, led the league in scoring and assists one year, but taking nothing away from him. They were really tough guards and a big man game at that time.
Yeah, it really was a big man game. Hey, I love when I could get both of you guys on there, because you guys know so much about the game, and you guys know so much about the history of the game. I want to take a moment out and talk about the passing of Al Adams, who died at age 87, drafted by the Philadelphia Warriors and spent 60 years with the franchise as a player, coach, and GM. He coached the Warriors to the NBA title in 1975. Let me start with you, Mac, on your thoughts of Mr. Adams' pass. Well, I know he's a good friend of yours.
Yes, he was. And again, to the audience out there, my condolences to the family, very close-knit family, and to the organization, the Golden State Warriors organization, which was the San Francisco Warriors when Al played. But he's been a long-time friend. It's been maybe 6 or 7 years since I last saw him, and his health was declining then. But I stayed in touch with Al Adams as well as Wayne Emery, which I still do. And Wayne's health is not the best as well. But those two guys were very instrumental in me, certainly when I started coaching. They were very instrumental in giving me the wisdom and knowledge as a black assistant coach in Milwaukee with Dale Harris, and then later with the Los Angeles Clippers when I was interim head coach. But they always told me that, be aware of the perception of how people look at you as a player and as an assistant coach, as an African American. That perception was really important. And so they shared with me a lot of knowledge about their past and their history and what they had to overcome as African American coaches, players, etc. General manager, both of them were general managers. Both of them won world championships as a player, and Al never won it as a general manager. But he was very instrumental in putting that team together. But both gentlemen, and certainly Al Adams, they were all about family, and that's how they built their franchise or built their team around, even with the great superstars they had. But if you remember, they had great players there: Phil Smith and Rick Barry. Yeah. They had Gus Williams. They had the other kid, Wilkes, Jamal Wilkes. They had some great young players there during that time, but they built that team from scratch. And I think one year they went to the finals, didn't win it, and then they won it 1 year and won it with Jamal Wilkes. At that time was Keith Wilkes. They won it when he was just a rookie, and then they had my kid that I mentioned, Gus Williams, on the team as well. But Jeff Mullins. They had a lot of great young players, but Al Adams was just a fine human being, and really opened the doors. And they used to call him the Destroyer because he was so physical. In those days, just 6 feet tall, from North Carolina A&T.
Okay, HBCU.
Yeah, wasn't a highly drafted, but they saw something in him. And it wasn't about him scoring and making all-star. He was all about team and building camaraderie with the team. And I mean, he was the only player that really could control Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, really keep Wilt under control from going off. Because Wilt, as you know, was probably one of the 1 or 2, 3 greatest players. I still think he's the greatest player ever in the NBA, in my opinion. Okay, no one's ever averaged 50 points a game and 20 rebounds a game. No one's ever done that for one season. But we're in a different era now. With the media has really highlighted the Michael Jordans and LeBrons and everything. So that's another conversation. But Al Attles was just a great, great human being, the salt of the earth. And I'm happy to see that they're going to honor him. And they honored him prior to his passing, where a couple years ago they was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame as a contributor and also as a player, if I recall. But just a great, great human being. The NBA lost unbelievable. And just a sidebar, Ricky, it's been unbelievable in 2024. We've lost some great basketball minds, Jerry West and Bill Walton, of course now Al Attles. We lost Chet Walker early in the summer.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell last year. Last year was 2023 was Bill, but this year just been unbelievable. And I had just spoken to Jerry West, but not to take anything away from Al Attles, and he's going to be remembered. His number's been retired. Whoever retired a guy who only averaged 8 points a game, well, maybe Cooper's going to have been, his number's been retired. He only averaged 9 points a game with the Lakers. So, but nevertheless, just a great guy. And I know he was in poor health the last 4 or 5 years. And so he's going to be missed, my friend.
Derrick.
Man, it's hard to piggyback off of that, but I will say I want to send my prayers to the family as well, to Al Attles and Mr. Al Attles, rest in peace. My brother-in-law, Robert Bubbles Hawkins, played with the Golden State the following year after their championship, 75-76. But for me, Al Attles, I always look at him and another guy I thought were very tough, Paul Silas. Yeah. And to me, they always kind of intertwined. I thought they were just toughness. But to see Mr. Attles put that team together, Rick Barry, it had to end up sacrificing. Rick was a star coming from the ABA, but everyone has to sacrifice, and it starts at the top. And to see Rick become a better player, because Rick didn't have a really good reputation. A lot of people saw him as being arrogant and just kind of an ass, if I could say it on our show. And I said, so to see him, kind of improve for the betterment of the team, to welcome those other guys, Gus Williams and Keith Wilkes and Derek Dickey and Jeff Mullins and all those guys, Nate Thurman, for Al to put all those guys together and to get them to play as a team, I thought it was fantastic. It proves that there are more teams other than just the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. And to see Al, he was basically responsible for helping put Golden State on the map way before Steph Curry and the Klay Thompson guys. So I want to commend him. I think he's done a lot for the basketball in general. And like Mr. Calvin said, he's going to be missed. And we lost a great one.
Yeah, I absolutely well said, Derrick. When you played in that era as an African American, there for us, it had to be a certain conduct. And that's what I said earlier about perspective.
The perceptions.
The perception, yeah. We had to be careful. And even as an assistant coach, I'll never forget, it was Paul Silas, who was my ex-teammate with the Carolina Cougars and a longtime friend, was one of my mentors. We were in Chicago for the pre-draft, the combines they call it. And we were at the Hilton Hotel, and myself, Paul Silas, and Carter. Freddie Carter. Freddie Carter, wwho was also coaching in Philadelphia. And Al walked up to us and he said, you brothers not supposed to hang out together, like this in the lobby. He said, because that perception, he said, you're gonna make a whole bunch of white coaches, assistant coaches, be very suspicious of you because they think you're talking about it, you know. And I thought that was really interesting because there was so much insecurity, you know, and so we had to carry ourselves in a certain manner. And he and Wayne Embry brought that out, shared just those little things, you know, what I never would have thought of. You know, 4 or 5 African American coaches, you know, that just talking, and you know that how other, you know, the other white coaches would look at us, you know, and so you know, we couldn't do the things, you know, that these guys are doing today. You know, we just you know, and get away with it as a player, as I shared with you before, Ricky. And you know, when I started playing in '69, '70 season, there was only 3 African Americans. That was a hidden rule that only 3 black players could play on the team. You know, there are times that I would have dinner or having lunch or dinner with Billy Cunningham and Mike Lewis, one of our other players, and those guys would get waited on and I wouldn't, you know. And Billy said, what about Matt Cowell? You know, what about my teammate? And they said, you have to go upstairs and order room service, you know. So those was things like that we had to go through. And then just think about what Al Attles had to endure in the early 60s, where there definitely was only maybe 2 black ball players on the team, you know. And so you couldn't get away with a lot of fighting and, you know, cussing and using, you know, different language in those days, you know, the kind of language Charles Barkley used today. You couldn't get away with that. So,
you know, I'm working on a research project now that's requiring me to look at the way of going back to a lot of newspaper articles from the 50s and 60s in Nashville. And it was black or colored everything. Even in the newspaper, they had colored death notices. I'm like, the person died, what color? It doesn't matter what color it is. Then I learned, well, they had colored cemeteries. And that's how they would define it. That's colored. I'm like,
Ricky, do you remember Oscar Robertson, the great big old, when he told his story about how he couldn't go down the same street as the other players when they won the championship?
Yeah.
It's amazing that to even hear it. It's just sad when I even think about things, even though it happened so long ago. We still have a long way to go today. And to hear those kind of stories and see these guys persevere, man, that just shows how tough they were mentally. A lot of people could break under those circumstances, and to see these guys deal with those situations and still flourish, it tells a lot about them as human beings. So basketball players, we don't need to shut up and dribble, as Laura Ingraham said. We're so much more than just basketball players.
But Derek, we had to. It was a different mentality. See, I got exposed to it living in Long Beach. There was a city called Signal Hill, which was, you know, you left Long Beach, you're going to Signal Hill, where every day I got stopped by the Signal Hill. And there was a guy a football player that got hung there. He was hung in the jail. And that's how Johnny Cochran got his start, you know. His name was Ron Sellers. And so he was stopped, and next day, you know, found him hung. Here's a kid who was going to be a #1 draft pick, you know, in football. I said all that to share that story was that we were kind of drilled to, you know, shut up. You know, that's an illustration you talk about, Lord, shut up and just play ball. But we were fearful of our lives during that time. That's why when we talk about Al Attles and a Wayne Embry, man, can you just imagine, how they had to carry themselves, you know, and none of them were married to a white woman, you know, and, you know, you remember the D. Brown story, you know, back in the 90s when he was drafted #1 by the Boston Celtics and got signed his contract, had a $200,000 bonus check and went into the bank and deposited. His wife was waiting in the car, and when they came back out, you know, they arrested him. And they arrested him because they used the analogy that he was in the description of another person who had robbed a bank. So I said that we as Black African American players during that era, even in the 90s with D. Brown, we had to carry ourselves in a certain manner. Not that you can use the old analogy, Uncle Tom, but if you wanted to play ball and survive, and I can tell you a lot of stories, at another time, things that happened to me when I was playing in the South in North Carolina with the Cougars. But when you talk about you got to talk about the inner strength and the of a Wayne Emery and Al Attles back in those 90s, and the same with Bill Russell, and the same with Sat Sanders, who shared a lot of stories with me. So Al Attles passing, we look at the finished product, the finished story of Al Attles, but we don't go back and look at what he had to overcome, how he made a community respect him, in San Francisco, and how he became the second African-American general manager behind Wayne Emery, and to go and lead a championship, and what he had to endure, So we cannot that's history, man. And thank God I'm still alive to live it and say it.
Matt, that's why I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight to help put his career in the proper perspective, because people have acknowledged his passing, but they hadn't really gone in depth like you and Derrick had tonight on his career and the legacy that he leaves. And Mac, you were one of the pioneers that paved the way for young men like Derrick to just go out and play ball after you guys had to deal with all that. Especially you played with the Carolina Cougars and the Floridians in the early 70s. So it was still kind of rough down there.
Oh, absolutely. I got stopped. I had a white babysitter that babysitted for me, and I would take her after the game, take her after babysitting, and take her back on the campus at North Carolina, Greensboro. And I got stopped all the time, because they thought I was a pimp, I can go on. And the guy told me to shut up. He said, and he used the N-word. He said, Ian, I will blow your brains out right now. So we had to endure that. And so the history has to continue to be told. And that's why certain segments of our community don't really want to share the story of African Americans. And I thank God I'm in my right mind, and I can still be on your show. And Derrick's young. I can share that with Derrick. He probably heard some of it from his brother. But it haven't all been peaches and cream, So when the passing of an Al Attles, that's history that's passed by, man. That somebody has to continue to articulate what he endured and went through, and what I have gone. I don't have this platform anyplace else, other than your show. I don't have it in a book. I don't have it in a video. So that's why we have to continue to tell that story, the narrative of what went on. Because, hey, it's easy for these kids playing ball now, but it wasn't that way.
Well, you're always welcome on the show with me and Derrick and our other show, the African American Athlete, with me and Mike. Anytime you got something on your mind. I mean, this hour has just flown by, D. We really hadn't got a chance to get into anything. Let's try to talk some hoops before we get out of here. As we head into a new season, the 76ers have made a lot of moves.
Yeah. Ricky, can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Just a sidebar and acknowledge Derrick and who he is. And it's probably has not been the easiest thing for him to be in the shadows of his brother, great Hall of Famer. But I admire you for what you do, Derrick, and what you put into young people, and coming from your background, you're still giving. So continue to do what you do. Let your light shine, because you've got a lot of depth in what you do and how you share. And I'm very proud to be a friend and love your honesty and the depth of your knowledge about basketball.
And
Thank you.
and
Wow.
man,
You go ahead and tell him, Ricky.
no, I'll let you tell him, Derrick. I'll let you tell him this
Mr.
shit.
Calvin, man, I'm happy. I'm not gonna get emotional, but you mentioned the Hall of Fame. I'm actually heading into my college, my University of Texas San Antonio Hall of Fame on October the 18th. And
Man, awesome.
all I
What a
can think
blessing,
about is
brother.
how proud. Thank you, man. And my mom would be so proud, and
Yes.
I don't really have words for it. It's just it's surreal, and
Well,
so and all your
congratulations, man. Well
thank you,
done.
but your words mean more than that to me, sir. So.
Well, from my heart, my
We're
brother.
all in the same boat. Ricky, you
And,
had a fantastic career. We all have contributed to society. Ricky, you've done it in your way, sports writer and all that. But it's the caring for other people. It's not about the job. It's about the human being. So I look at the three of us
Humility.
on here. I'm blessed to even know you two gentlemen, man, and I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you,
and
my friend.
and man, you know his jersey's already hanging from the rafters
I did not know that.
at UTSA.
Wow.
Yes, sir. When did
Yeah.
they do that,
Well,
Derrick?
it's humility, brother.
2000. It's been a while now. I think like 2006 or something. It's myself and Devin Brown. So
Yeah.
the basketball actually started in 1981. I started the following year in 82, and of course I went there for 3 years, and I left a year early to go pro. So we talking 43 years of the basketball, and there's still only two men's jerseys up there. So
Yeah.
Devin
Well,
Brown played down here. He's a San Antonio legend in high school, and of course he played with the San Antonio Spurs. So just to have two of us up there, man, I mean, it's something that's hard to explain, and I want to thank my school for making it happen. The University of Texas San Antonio, as you see behind me, and I have to give them
right.
credit for even
Absolutely.
thinking about me. Wow.
Well, again, it goes to character, man. Okay, you've not
Thank
been
you.
in any trouble. You've carried yourself at a high standard, and you're still giving back. You know, it may take it a little long, but God is, it can be a little slow sometimes in making things happen. But you are a blessing, man, and you've got to share your story and your journey with others, brother.
And
Mr.
it's
Calvin,
fun.
right quick, Rick, let me say this
Yeah,
quickly.
go
I had
ahead.
a
Go
friend
ahead.
tell me that I had a friend tell me today that lives in Chicago. He said that when your time comes for something great, it doesn't have a date on it.
It
And to
doesn't.
hear Mr. Calvin, you say that right there, it's something I just heard earlier. That man, that's spectacular. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
And
yeah.
actually, when Derrick told me he was going in, I thought he was already in because his jersey's hanging from the rafters. So he gets an extra
Well, Ricky,
ceremony.
a lot of people got upset because I wasn't in the first group. They started last year inducting players, and people were upset because Devin Brown went in and the other four people that they inducted. I didn't care about any of that, man. It's just the fact that I knew my time was come, and the fact that they're honoring me. I didn't care if it was first, second, third. I'm just glad it's happening while I'm alive. As they say, give me my flowers while I'm alive to appreciate them. So I didn't have to be in the first group. I'm in the group that you could never take me out of, and
Yeah,
that's
well,
enough for me.
Absolutely.
well, one of the scriptures in the Bible, and say there's two things. I know you want to get back to basketball, Ricky. A
No, you
delay.
good. This is great. This is great.
A delay is not a denial from God, and that's the way I look at my going into the Naismith Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's been a delay. It can be very heartbreaking when you see others that you know you're better than, you've done accomplished. But a delay is never a denial from the big guy upstairs. And so maybe a little delay you're going in, but you're going in, brother. And make sure you give God the credit and the people that help get you to where you got.
Mr. Cal, thank you. But can I tell you what would be the pinnacle for me? And it's not about me. I believe you're going to get in next year, this coming year. And there's another guy that I also want. I'm hoping you two both get in, and that's Terry Cummings. TC sends me his sermon every week, every Sunday. I get a sermon from Terry Cummings, and he lives in Georgia now. So I call him Pastor Cummings.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping that the two of you guys, I hope you get what you deserve. You definitely deserve it.
I coach him, and TC's a good man. He's never wavered. He's just never tooted his own horn. But you got to have somebody really toot your horn and really vouch for you and support you. And, as long as I can have parents that come up to me and say, I'm doing a great job. My kids turned around through your sermon and through your, your discipline toward my kids in my camp. And I stay with them all year round. Hey, I'm happy, brother.
Yeah.
I agree.
Man, Terry Cummins, he was just a prolific scorer around the basket when he played. Loved his game.
Just a nice guy, Ricky. If I didn't move to Texas, the odds are very high that I would have been playing with him at DePaul.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, hey, listen, he's a good man, and you tell him I said hello when you text him or talk to him. But there was two choices for the Los Angeles Lakers to draft, and you know who those two were?
TC and Worthy.
Exactly.
And James Worthy, yeah, I was gonna say big game James, the guy who taught people that these young people need to be looking at how to run a fast break, how to run wide on the break. That's big game James Worthy.
Yeah, but Terry was the number 2 pick, went to Milwaukee, obviously, and had a great career. Just wasn't on a winning team, but he'll get in. He'll get in. So anyway, Ricky, I apologize.
No, this is no apologies needed. This has been fantastic. We're just running out of time.
Can we do this quickly? I just want to ask Mr. Calvin, and this is how I want to end it. Boston Celtics, after winning last year, and then what they endured kind of doing the Olympics with Jaylen Brown not being chosen, and then Jason Tatum not playing much, and then, of course, Drew Holiday and Derrick White playing more than him. Could that affect them going into next season, or are they mature enough to come back and Jaylen not try to outdo Jason Tatum and Tatum not try to outdo Jaylen Brown? Are they mature enough to come back and just try to go out and do what's best for the team?
Oh, absolutely. It's unfortunate the Olympics, stars, they have to buy into the system, and I think he did. It was a little disappointment sometimes. But that was Steve Kerr. That was his system, unfortunately. But look at how did he take it? When you're 10 of the best players in the world or whatever, so you bought in. But let me say this: the media and everybody tried to tear up those two guys. They tried to divide Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and they never could do that.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I'm not a betting man. I have almost 29 years since I've made a wager and gone to the racetrack. But let me say this. If I was a betting man, the Boston Celtics is a team that's got a 3 to 5 year run. They're going to be hard to beat. Trust me, hard to beat. Unless they have a major injury.
What about what the Sixers are doing?
No. Hey,
bringing in George.
No, it doesn't matter. You got a broken down George, and you've got a guy Embiid that can't play 60% of his games. They just don't have a system. They're and even Milwaukee. Milwaukee is they've got an older Damon Lillard, and the young kid can't play. He's 30, 32 now, Giannis. But Boston Celtics is young, and they what is Tatum, 25, 26? Brown's 27, and Porzingis didn't even hardly play a lot. They've got the winning formula now. And if they stay healthy, but I'm going to tell you the two teams you better watch out for, and we can talk about it another time, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. Ain't nobody else around. And Indiana.
Indiana, yeah.
Derrick?
That's it, Ricky. I know no, that's fine. I'm ready to head over to another show.
Okay.
I just want to thank.
We're running late.
I just want to thank. I'm ready to talk football now. So, top 25 college football.
You better talk Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, the Detroit Lions, baby.
No, we're actually doing a breakdown of the Big 12 tonight, Mr. Calvin. So we're going to be talking about University of Utah and Colorado and Shadur and all those guys are going to be doing.
Yeah, well,
Well, you get to the NFL, the Detroit Lions back with comment.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, but you got to get past Kansas City, brother.
Well, we out of here. Hey, we'll have you back for Derrick Gervin and Matt Calvin. I'm Rick Hampton. Thank you, everybody. What a great conversation. Take care. Be blessed. Peace.
I love you
Bye-bye.
guys. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Calvin.
All
Have a
right.
good
Yes,
night.
sir.
Have a good night.